we've got bad news for Chevy and GM owners, and honestly, this might be the biggest wake-up call the company has faced in over a decade, because what's happening right now isn't just a minor recall or a temporary sales dip. This is a full-blown structural problem that's hitting GM from every direction. Reliability issues stacking up, costs exploding, EV strategy falling apart, and dealers quietly panicking behind the scenes. If you own a Chevy right now, or you've been planning to buy one, what you're about to hear is something you absolutely need to know. For months, GM has been struggling to push its Ultium platform as the future of American EVs. But here's the truth, the rollout has been an absolute mess. Slow production, battery shortages, software failures, and customers waiting months for repairs on vehicles that are supposed to represent GM's big comeback. Chevy Blazer EV owners literally had their deliveries paused because the software wasn't stable enough to even function properly. And the worst part, GM told everyone these EVs would compete with Tesla, Hyundai, and even BYD, but so far they're barely competing with their own promises. But that's not the only crisis hitting GM owners. The reliability gap is widening, and people are noticing. Across multiple models, Silverado, Colorado, Traverse, and even the new Equinox, complaints have been piling up about everything from transmission failures to electrical glitches to build quality problems that shouldn't exist in vehicles costing over $40,000. GM's warranty costs have surged, and internal reports show dealers are overwhelmed with backlogged repairs. Owners who bought a Chevy expecting dependable American engineering are now finding themselves stuck in loaner cars for weeks because parts are delayed or simply unavailable. At the same time, GM has quietly been cutting features, raising prices, and shrinking production plans, moves that signal financial pressure behind the scenes. Chevy dealers have been warning that inventory isn't moving, discounts are returning, and buyers are losing trust. Meanwhile, GM's EV strategy has collapsed so badly that the company is now crawling back toward hybrids after publicly insisting for years that hybrids were dead. That sudden U-turn is sending a clear message. GM miscalculated the market, and now customers are the ones paying the price. And it gets even worse, because the federal government is now investigating multiple safety concerns, including the Silverado EV's battery pack integrity and unexpected power loss in several GM electric models. This isn't just embarrassing, it's dangerous. The pressure is building from regulators, customers, dealers, and investors at the same time, and GM is struggling to respond without exposing just how unprepared they really are for the future they promised. But Chevy and GM owners already know something is wrong. Customer satisfaction scores are slipping, used GM values are dropping faster than their competitors, and surveys show that many once loyal American truck buyers, people who would never consider switching brands, are now quietly exploring Ford, Toyota, or even Hyundai because they're tired of dealing with GM's ongoing problems. Owners describe the same pattern over and over. Great styling, impressive features on paper, but long-term reliability that just isn't keeping up. And here's the part nobody at GM wants to talk about. The company is trapped in a cycle of over-promising and under-delivering. From the Hummer EV's insane weight problems, to software glitches in the Blazer EV, to production delays on the Silverado EV, to combustion engine issues that just won't go away, GM is burning through customer trust at a rate it can't afford. Every time they announce a new launch or a new update, people no longer get excited. They get nervous. They wonder what's gonna go wrong this time. And that shift in perception is dangerous. Because once a brand loses trust, it's nearly impossible to win it back. And that's exactly what we're seeing unfold with Chevy and GM right now. Owners who used to defend the brand no matter what are now openly admitting that they're tired. Tired of recalls, tired of delays, tired of excuses, tired of feeling like beta testers for vehicles that should have been perfected before hitting the road. The loyalty that once kept GM on top is cracking, and the cracks are widening fast. The used market is exposing the problem even more brutally. Chevy models that were holding steady in value just a couple of years ago are now dropping at double the rate of competitors. Dealers are stuck with full lots, and instead of bragging about low inventory, they're begging the company for more support because customers simply aren't biting. And when a brand's new vehicles struggle, its used vehicles collapse. That's exactly what's happening now, especially with GM's EV lineup. People are scared to buy used because they've heard the stories. Battery replacements that take months, software that needs constant patching, and resale values that fall off a cliff the moment the warranty ends. Meanwhile, GM's leadership continues to paint a picture of confidence. They're insisting everything is under control, that the Ultium platform is on track, that the shift to hybrids is part of a long-term strategy, not a desperation move. But behind the scenes, suppliers are frustrated, dealers are angry, and customers are confused. The company's public messaging doesn't match the reality happening on the ground, and that disconnect is why more analysts are warning that GM is in danger of losing entire segments of the market if these issues aren't fixed immediately. And let's talk about Chevy owners specifically, because you're the ones feeling the impact the most. You're dealing with vehicles that should be reliable but aren't. You're dealing with repairs that should take days but instead take weeks. You're dealing with recalls that keep coming back like clockwork. You're dealing with software updates that fix one issue but create 3 new ones. And the sad truth is, many owners are starting to feel abandoned. It's like the company is more focused on chasing headlines than supporting the people who already bought their vehicles. But what's even more alarming is the growing fear that GM's future products might be built on shaky foundations. If the company is already struggling to perfect today's vehicles, what does that mean for the next generation? What happens when more EVs hit the market? What happens when hybrids start rolling out after being rushed to fill the gap? What happens when the pressure to cut costs leads to more corner cutting, more failures, more recalls, more frustrated owners? Because right now, all signs point in the same direction. GM is trying to sprint into the future while stumbling over the problems it hasn't fixed from the past. And Chevy owners, unfortunately, are caught in the middle of that storm, paying higher prices, dealing with more issues, and watching the value of their investment slip away with every new headline. Because if these trends continue, GM won't just be dealing with a temporary dip, they'll be facing a full-scale collapse of customer confidence that could take an entire generation to rebuild. And you can already feel that momentum shifting. GM used to be the brand people trusted for durability, for toughness, for long-term value. But now, more and more Chevy owners are asking questions they never asked before. Will my truck hold up? Will my SUV drop in value? Will this EV leave me stranded? When customers start doubting the basics, the brand is in trouble, and that trouble is showing up in ways GM hoped you wouldn't notice. Warranty repair times have quietly doubled in some regions. Dealers are reporting shortages of critical parts, especially for newer models using the Ultium platform. Technicians are overwhelmed and undertrained on the new systems. And because these vehicles require more software expertise than ever, a growing number of dealerships simply can't fix what's going wrong. That means more delays, more customer frustration, and more pressure on GM to sort out a mess that's getting bigger, not smaller. But the real shockwave is coming from something GM has been very quiet about: the internal cost cutting that's starting to impact production quality. Insiders have leaked reports showing reduced material budgets, simplified components, and aggressive supplier negotiations, all signs that GM is trying to save money fast. And whenever a car company starts tightening the belt too quickly, quality takes a hit. That's exactly what many Chevy owners are experiencing right now. Loose trim, rattles, electrical gremlins, inconsistent panel gaps, infotainment glitches, and premature wear on components that should last years longer. And while all of this is happening, GM is still trying to push bold timelines, futuristic announcements, and industry-leading claims, but people aren't buying it anymore. Not when the current lineup can't shake off its issues. Not when EV owners are reporting software failures within days of owning the vehicle. Not when trucks that used to define durability are now struggling with repeated recalls. And definitely not when GM keeps promising a future they can't seem to catch. Now here's where things get really concerning for owners. Insurance companies have started flagging some GM EVs as high-risk liability due to battery replacement costs and software unpredictability. This isn't just a GM problem, this affects your wallet. Higher premiums, stricter requirements, and in some cases, insurers refusing coverage on certain models until more data is available. When the insurance industry loses confidence, that's a sign the problems are deeper than anyone wants to admit. Meanwhile, competing brands are circling like sharks. Toyota is highlighting its rock-solid hybrid lineup. Ford is doubling down on proven powertrains. Hyundai and Kia are pushing tech that actually works out of the box. And every time a frustrated Chevy owner owner jumps ship, those competitors get stronger, GM's market share is slipping, and the company is running out of levers to pull. But the part that should really make GM owners nervous is what analysts are now predicting. If GM can't stabilize its production and fix these recurring quality issues soon, the next few years could bring a wave of aggressive dealer closures, mass restructuring, and even larger recalls than we've seen so far. And all of that would directly impact the people who already own these cars, meaning you. And we haven't even talked about the upcoming storm that experts say could hit GM harder than anything they've faced in the last 20 years. The collapse of consumer patience. See, mechanical issues can be forgiven, recalls can be forgiven, even bad product launches can be forgiven. But what customers won't forgive is the feeling that a company isn't listening, or worse, that it's pretending everything is fine while problems pile up. And right now, that's exactly how many GM and Chevy owners feel, like they're shouting into the void while the company pushes out more marketing hype instead of genuine solutions. And that disconnect is growing because owners are sharing everything online now, thousands of posts, videos, reviews, and complaints documenting issues that used to stay behind dealership doors. TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook groups are filled with stories of charging failures, transmissions giving out, infotainment systems crashing on the highway, and trucks stuck at dealerships for months waiting on parts. It's all out in the open, and it's shaping public perception faster than GM can spin it. Now combine that with GM's constantly shifting strategy. First they said EVs were the only future, then they walked it back. Now they're scrambling to bring hybrids after mocking hybrids for years. That kind of flip-flopping tells customers one thing: the company doesn't have a clear plan, and if the company doesn't have a plan, customers don't have confidence. And confidence is everything. When confidence dies, resale dies. When resale dies, demand dies. And when demand dies, the entire brand weakens. But the warning signs don't stop there. Analysts are noticing something disturbing. GM is falling behind in technology not because the tech doesn't exist, but because integrating it into their vehicles reliably has proven far more difficult than they expected. Ultium batteries, Super Cruise updates, digital dashboards, over-the-air software, all of it sounds impressive on stage. But in the real world, Chevy owners are dealing with bugs, crashes, and half-baked updates that create more problems than they solve. It's like GM tried to leap 5 steps ahead without mastering step 1, and this is where it hits Chevy owners the hardest. GM is relying on early adopters, you, to find these issues. That means instead of receiving a polished, ready-for-market product, customers are getting vehicles that feel rushed, experimental, and inconsistent. And when you're spending $40,000, $60,000, even $100,000 on a truck or SUV, that's unacceptable. But the heat is really about to turn up because GM is preparing to launch several major new models over the next year, including more EVs and hybrid variants built under incredible pressure to deliver. Dealers are worried, suppliers are nervous, and owners are asking a simple question: if the current lineup isn't stable, how is the next one going to be any better? That doubt is spreading faster than GM can control, and with every delay, every recall, every software patch that breaks something else, GM risks triggering something far worse than bad PR: the long-term erosion of brand reputation. Once that reputation slips far enough, GM could face a full-scale trust crisis that affects every single model on the lot, from the entry-level Spark to the top-of-the-line Silverado EV. And trust isn't something you can fix with a glossy ad or a big announcement. It takes years to rebuild, and in the fast-moving auto industry, years can mean the difference between leading the market and falling irreversibly behind. Right now, Chevy owners are at the center of this storm, and if GM doesn't act fast, their loyalty could evaporate almost overnight. What's making this situation even more urgent is that competitors are not standing still. Ford, Toyota, Hyundai, and even startups like Rivian and Lucid are learning from GM's missteps. They're offering vehicles that are ready to drive, software that works out of the box, and batteries that hold up under real-world conditions. Meanwhile, GM is still playing catch-up, releasing vehicles that are often rushed, half-finished, or plagued by repeated issues. And as consumers compare what they can buy from other brands, the gaps become impossible to ignore. Chevy owners are already feeling the sting. Vehicles that were supposed to be rock-solid investments are now depreciating faster than expected. Service appointments are taking longer than ever. EV charging frustrations are mounting. And as more and more people share their experiences online, the story is spreading. GM's vehicles might look good, but they're increasingly increasingly seen as unreliable and risky. That's a huge problem in a market where reliability and trust are everything. And let's not forget about the financial side. GM's stock has been volatile, and investors are watching every misstep closely. When a company faces repeated product issues, delayed launches, and negative press, it doesn't just hurt customers, it hits the bottom line. That pressure can force decisions that impact the quality of vehicles even further, creating a dangerous feedback loop that threatens both the company and its loyal owners. But perhaps the most alarming part for Chevy and GM owners is this: the problems are systemic, not isolated. This isn't just a bad model here or a recall there. These issues are showing up across platforms, across vehicle types, across markets. Trucks, SUVs, and EVs are all experiencing glitches, software failures, and production delays. And if GM can't stabilize the foundations of its business now, every future release risks repeating the same mistakes at higher costs, with bigger reputational damage, and for customers who are already losing patience. And that brings us to a harsh reality for current owners. You're already in the middle of a risky situation. The longer GM takes to address these issues, the more time goes by where your vehicle's reliability, value, and resale potential are exposed to uncertainty. Owners are being asked to trust a company whose products haven't been consistently delivering, while GM focuses on ambitious future launches that may or may not fix today's problems. And the warning signs don't stop there, because there's another layer that GM isn't talking about: dealer frustration and operational strain. Dealers are the front line for customer experiences, and right now they're under immense pressure. Repair backlogs are piling up, technicians are overworked, and parts shortages are becoming the new normal. Some dealers are even refusing to take on certain EVs until they're confident the service network can handle them. That means even if you buy a new Chevy tomorrow, the support you expect might not be there when you need it most. And when dealers lose confidence, that ripples straight back to customers. Fewer incentives, slower fixes, and a deteriorating ownership experience. Meanwhile, GM's software issues continue to pile up like an avalanche. Updates meant to improve the vehicle are often creating new problems, from infotainment freezes to critical safety warnings. EV owners are seeing charge errors, battery misreads, and connectivity failures that leave them stranded or anxious. And it's not just tech enthusiasts noticing. Everyday drivers are feeling the frustration, and their negative experiences are spreading across social media faster than GM can issue a statement. When trust in software fails, trust in the vehicle as a whole fails, and that's a problem GM hasn't fully grasped. And let's not forget regulatory scrutiny, which is quietly intensifying. Safety investigations, emissions compliance checks, and EV performance audits are all starting to add pressure behind the scenes. Any misstep here could trigger recalls, fines, or even production halts. For owners, that means more uncertainty about whether their vehicle is fully safe, fully legal, and fully reliable. And for GM, it means a mounting pile of risks that could have long-term financial and reputational consequences. Chevy and GM owners are essentially being asked to navigate this maze while GM fights to stabilize its own strategy. EV launches are delayed, hybrid plans are inconsistent, gas-powered models have reliability issues, and the resale market is sinking faster than anyone predicted. And as competitors capitalize on every misstep, GM's once dominant position in trucks and SUVs is being chipped away, subtly at first, but steadily and unmistakably. And here's the part that really hits home for owners: this isn't going to fix itself overnight. GM has decades of engineering expertise, massive resources, and a storied history, but recovering customer trust takes more than factories and marketing campaigns. It takes consistent quality, reliable vehicles, responsive service, and a track record that proves they've learned from their mistakes. And right now, that track record is shaky at best. The clock is ticking, and Chevy and GM owners are caught right in the middle. Every delay, every software bug, every quality complaint is another crack in the foundation. And if GM doesn't act fast, those cracks could turn into fractures that shake the entire brand, leaving loyal owners questioning whether they should stick with Chevy at all. And the next issue that's about to hit is even more critical: the financial fallout for owners themselves. Vehicles are losing value faster than expected, and with the surge of recalls and repair delays, resale prices are dropping even more. People who bought Chevys thinking they were solid investments are realizing that their trucks and SUVs might not hold value the way GM promised. And with higher insurance premiums creeping in for EVs due to battery replacement risks and software unpredictability, ownership costs are quietly climbing. happening. It's a perfect storm where loyalty is being tested, wallets are being hit, and confidence is evaporating faster than GM can patch it. And then there's the looming question of long-term support for EVs and hybrid models. GM has been aggressive in marketing the Ultium platform as revolutionary, but the reality is far from it. Early adopters are already experiencing issues with charging, battery longevity, and software glitches. If GM can't scale reliable service networks quickly, owners may find themselves stuck with vehicles that are expensive to maintain, difficult to repair, and frustrating to drive.